Welcome to the show Gold Squadron Gays. It's the podcast where two Star Wars loving gays talk about and review their favorite Star Wars content while also being gay as hell. I'm your host, Bradley Brower.
I'm your other host, Charles Rogers, and I need to issue a public apology.
Oh.
I have done a great deal of harm with a mistake. I've been doing it for years. I've perpetrated something that turned out to not be true. And I need to go on the record now and correct my very, very grievous error that I have made in the course of my Star Wars career. So I have stated multiple times, both on this podcast and generally, that when I was 18 years old, I loaned my hardback copy of Death Star to my high school friend, Liam. And that when I went off to college, Liam never gave that hardback copy back to me. We lost touch while he still had it. I had to buy a whole new one that had the Legends branding on it. And I've been saying for years that he has my copy of Death Star. So I was unpacking boxes the other day. It turns out that my hardback copy of Death Star was simply not packed in the same box as all of my other Star Wars books. For some reason, it was down at the bottom of a box which otherwise had a bunch of Legos in it. Liam, I am so sorry for telling everyone for a decade and a half, or really for almost 2 decades, that you have my hardback copy of Death Star. I had it the whole time. And so I am issuing this public apology to my high school friend Liam. I am sorry for the damage that I have done, and I'm doing my best to help mitigate that.
In other
Bradley's
news,
just giving me a look like, can we fucking move on to talk about something that I give a shit about?
which is probably just sexy slug people.
Yeah, okay. So over there's been much rumor, speculation, innuendo, outuendo regarding Rot of the Hutt.
Right.
There was an AI generated toy box that Bradley was able to spot was AI that purported to show Buff Hutt. We knew Buff Hutt was coming, but we hadn't gotten a good look at Buff Hutt.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was an image that went around last week that a guy who works at ILM had to get on BlueSky and say, yeah, that's fake.
Yeah.
That's not the official image. But now, at long last, Empire Magazine has released the first official image of Buff Hutt. We got a good look at what he looks like. Not as cut as the Buff Hutts in the comics, but still has impressive abs.
Well, I mean, to be fair, genetics can only get you so far. And when your father is a giant fat slug, I don't know how much you can do about that. However, he looks good for his age, I'm assuming.
Yeah, we don't know how Hutt's age
Right.
necessarily.
Well, he was a
Uh,
little pupa piece of shit, baby when we last saw him. So who knows? He's been eating
yep.
a lot since then. So,
The article did talk a little bit how he's having to carve his own like destiny out, but like everybody knows that his dad is Jabba the Hutt.
right, right, right.
But they likened him to Apollo Creed, like he's a pit fighter
Interesting.
now, and
I'm like, are they just teasing all this just so that they can do a Rod of the Hutt movie by itself, like, or a spin-off show or some bullshit?
no, I
Like,
think he'll get his own spin-off comic. I think he'll get his own spin-off comic because
comic for sure, I can
now
see that.
want to fill in the gaps. They're gonna do this
Yeah.
thing that they do where they introduce a character and then they have to retroactively fill in where this character was.
Uh-huh.
And the last time we saw a Hutt that was implied to be Stinky, which it turned out that it's not, but he was being handed off to Cobb Vanth in the Aftermath books.
Mm.
That was only a couple of years ago, and the Huttlet in that was still a Huttlet. But now I guess that was not the same Huttlet.
I mean, you think they're gonna try to do some bullshit thing where they incorporate Maul into it because that's the current show coming out, so they're gonna be like, well, he was
No, I
actually
think they're going to be too. Well, they might. They might combine.
they
I
might
don't know. We're
combine
entering.
the
So is
marketing.
the other article with Dave Filoni talked about how we're kind of entering this new era of Star Wars.
Hmm.
Like it's a different time. We've got new co-CEOs.
Right.
We're trying to move on from the Skywalkers. We've milked the nostalgia as much as we possibly can. and now we're going to try to move on and do something different. I'm starting to see a weird amount of weird for the internet. I'm seeing a lot of weird like takes on the Acolyte where people are going, "Oh, well, at least the Acolyte was something different. At least it
Oh
was
my
not
God.
something we've seen before. Maybe it should have gotten a season 2."
Oh my God.
Like the think pieces are starting of the, well,
Already? That's crazy.
maybe it was something different. Yeah, they're already starting, which is
That's
ahead of
crazy.
schedule.
Ahead of
Yeah.
schedule, right.
Hmm.
Interesting. Very interesting.
What are your thoughts on Buff Hut,
Oh, I
Bradley?
mean, he's great. I mean, it's just something dumb and weird and different, like we're so used to the it's like a way to play on the New Hope nostalgia without being like, here's Han, Luke, Leia. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I like when they do that, like, where it's like, here's something that's reminiscent of the original trilogy, whatever esque, without being so directly like green lightsaber, Ewoks, whatever. Like, they always come up with it. I like when they come up with a clever way. And I think doing Rada is kind of a mixture of that because it's like, oh, he's related to Jabba, but it's more so Clone Wars nostalgia, which I kind of appreciate more, because I feel like slowly but surely Dave is bringing all the things from Clone Wars into the live action universe, and so, I mean, great. Let's
Yeah,
just keep it
he's
rolling.
building up. He's building up to his big Mandoverse finale, and then it seems like he's going to be done at
I
that
think
point.
so.
Which
That'll be it.
he's had a good run. He's been
Yeah,
working. He's been helping to create Star Wars stuff in a direct role since the mid 2000s.
for
He's been
sure.
doing this for 20 years, and so now he seems to want to move new people into creating Star Wars content, which is exciting. They're putting out some stuff with Starfighter where they've talked about people who've seen Starfighter say that it's very new, it's very fresh, it's very original, and I'm personally very excited for Starfighter. Hey, speaking of Starfighters, I guess, what are we talking about today?
Today we're talking about Resistance Season 1, Episode 9, The Platform Classic. When hotshot racer Marcus Speedstar arrives on the Colossus, Yeager is confronted by a painful past he's kept hidden. Charles, what's one thing you liked about the episode and one thing you did not?
I liked the emotional core between Marcus and Yeager. I thought that was this is a good moment in the series to reveal the Yeager backstory. It's given us just enough time that we've gotten to know him beforehand, but it's not so much time that it's like, okay, just tell us, especially what it turns out to be, because they pretty much explain his whole deal in this. So I think it was appropriately timed, and I thought the way they handled it was really well. That this was an episode that delved a lot into Yeager. I also liked that Yeager was the one who had to change over the course of the episode, that it was not Marcus, that he didn't encounter Marcus and had to bring Marcus around to his line of thinking. I really liked that the reverse had to happen. Yeager had to grow as a character. I liked that the character we're already invested in was the one who had to grow and change. That made it work a lot better for me than if it had been Yeager convincing Marcus. One thing I disliked about this episode. That's a tricky one. Some of the Kaz stuff, it felt like Kaz wasn't necessarily as much of a character in this one. He mainly existed to be exposited to. He has some good lines about like, well, you should forgive your brother, etc., etc. But he comes off as very flat in this one. He doesn't, even his mistake at the beginning where he gets really excited about Marcus and then realizes belatedly is kind of glossed over and we move on from it very quickly. He only serves as our window into Marcus in this episode. And that's well and good. It's Yeager's episode, but it does feel like you could replace Kaz with literally any other character and the plot would still work and function. He could literally have been Tam, and with some dialogue rewriting, the exact same plot could have played out. What about you, Bradley? One thing you liked and one thing you did not.
I agree, actually. I think, honestly, you probably could have written Kaz out of the episode almost completely, and it would have not changed the plot at all. Like, we could have just done Yeager by himself, theoretically, for most of the episode, apart from a little bit of exposition. But No, one thing I liked, I honestly, I this is a great episode. I was just being like super niche with all my likes, dislikes. So my other than just the whole episode as a whole, one specific thing, I just really like the color scheme of Marcus and the team being all one color with his ship and their uniforms. It's very pleasing to the eye. Just something silly that I liked. But one little nitpicky thing that I didn't like about the episode. There was a moment where Marcus and Yeager were having an emotional beat, and I felt like the scene took me out of it when they said Oplok's name. Like it's just such an awkward, weird alien name. Like the emotional like through with the scene like takes you out because you're like, well, that's not a real person's name. Like also we don't really know who Oplok is, nor do we care about him. So his values or his emotional well-being based on Yeager and Marcus's story does means nothing to me. Like I don't care what Oplok thinks of the situation. So it was really weird how they threw that one scene in, and it was just like I didn't like that part. That was my only little random thing I didn't like about the episode. But other than that, it was really great. I really love Marcus Speedstar, and spoiler alert, because of how when I did the research on who does the voice and everything, I found out that he doesn't show up ever again in the show, and this is a one-off episode,
Nope.
and that's annoying.
He's one of those things that would have come back had the
That's what I
show
figured.
continued past season 2.
That's
He
what I
was
figured.
definitely built up to be a much bigger character than he turned out to be. It's not in my notes, but I have to point out from a color theory perspective. Did you notice that Marcus's colors are black and purple? And that Yeager thinks that Marcus is in it for the money and the fame. Purple is commonly associated with royalty or with wealth because purple dye used to be extremely difficult to get a hold of. And so it is a visual signifier. You probably didn't notice it, but your brain did.
Right.
That Marcus is colored in wealthier colors, as opposed to Yeager, who's in browns and yellows and whites.
Which another thing that bothered me was Yeager did not have a flight suit. He wore his fucking everyday cartoon outfit, and
That
it pissed
also
me the fuck
bothered
off.
me. That also bothered me that he just hopped right in the
Pissed me
fucking
the
thing
fuck
and took
off.
off.
Absolutely
Oh,
not.
Lord.
Yeager, why the fuck do you not match your ship? God damn it. Like, Kaz can get away with it because he's the main fucking character. Yes, he doesn't match the fireball. It's not his ship. I'm past that point now. But Yeager, that is your ship, and everybody else matches. Even your fucking goddamn helmet matches the ship, but your fucking jacket that at least doesn't. You don't have a special jacket just for racing. God damn it. Like, just swap the color palette. Just swap the color palette, please. God.
Nope,
Anyway.
that would have required building a new model, which we are not going to do
Yeah, that pissed me
because
off.
that
Anyway,
costs money. Anyway, we should talk about the actual episode because I have a decent amount to say about this episode.
Section 1. At Yeager's shop, the group rushes to finish repairs on the fireball so that they can watch the race tomorrow. Yeager announces that Captain Doza wants to see him about something important, and Kaz insists on the group tagging along. They arrive at Doza Tower, where Doza explains that the upcoming platform classic is crucial for boosting the Colossus economy. He wants to make this year's race bigger than ever. He reveals his real plan is to lure Yeager back into racing by having him compete against legendary sky racer Marcus Speedstar. Marcus enters and greets Yeager, but Yeager refuses to shake his hand. The group are thrilled by the celebrity appearance, while Yeager is upset. He reveals the shocking truth that Marcus Speedstar is his brother, stunning Kaz and the rest of Team Fireball. Doza announces the race as a brother versus brother showdown, but Yeager rejects the offer, saying both his racing career and his ties to Marcus are over, before walking out and dismissing the idea entirely.
The very first thing I want to point out in this episode is we get further continuing evidence that Kazuda Ziono is a bisexual man, and the way that we know this is he can't sit normally on a fucking chair.
God damn it.
He is sitting on the chair, like leaning on the back of it
Hmm.
with his knees on the chair itself. He is not sitting normally. This is not a straight man.
I'm dead.
I had to point that out. We do get our first piece of the continuing backstory of Yeager, and even in a very early scene, we do find out another piece of his backstory that's relevant to this episode, and that is that he used to be a racer.
Hmm.
So we do learn that very early on. That was not information I think we had before.
No, we only had the two photos and the vague connection to Poe, but I mean, I guess that's pretty much all we knew, right? Like, we
Yeah.
didn't really know anything else.
We knew he fought at Jakku. He was a fighter pilot. He was in the rebellion
Right.
and he
We knew he
had
flew
some
ships.
connection.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we do find out later in this episode how, like, what happened
Right.
after he flew in Jakku. But we'll talk about that in a minute because I want to jump ahead. I don't have a lot of notes about, like, the Doza stuff. Doza's acting pretty much like the guy who is in charge of the station.
Right. He
Everything he
just
says is
money,
completely
money, money, money,
reasonable.
money.
I I need to pay for things. We need to pay for stuff on the station. I do think it's funny that he basically implies that the Aces are going to compete in a larger race, and then when we see the race, it's only the Aces and Marcus and Yeager, which okay, sure, whatever. The plot has to happen. We move on past that.
Right.
We get introduced to Marcus Speedstar. Let's talk about who's voicing Marcus Speedstar because I know you did research on this and so did I.
Yeah, so Marcus is being voiced by Keston Johnson. He has appeared in multiple TV shows and movies, Avatar 2 and 3, The Good Place. He's done voices in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, DreamWorks Dragons and the Nine Realms, Netflix She-Ra and the Princess of Power. He's done video game voices as well. He's appeared in the Call of Duty games, Elder Scrolls, World of Warcraft series. If you
Yep, we'll
sign
talk
up for
about
our
that in a
Patreon, you
second.
know we were talking about that.
Yep, we were talking about it in patreon.com/Gold Squadron Gaze and the 15 minutes of not Star Wars you get before this. And actually, I will point out that his first voice acting gig ever, according to IMDb, was the original World of
Was
Warcraft in
World of Warcraft.
2004.
Nice. He does have a Disney animated trifecta. He's done voice work for Disney's The Owl House, and he's done Marvel's Avengers Assembled. This is not his only Star Wars. He was Jedi Master Carver Drow in Star Wars Young Jedi Adventures, and a father of a Force-sensitive child in the last Barris episode of Star Wars Tales of the Empire.
Do you know what you didn't mention? Or at least I didn't hear you mention it.
Oh no, I think that's it. I don't think I forgot anything.
Nope, you didn't leave
No, I
anything off.
for
You
sure
didn't
did
leave a
not forget
single
anything.
thing off of this. Uh-huh.
Nope, I
Uh-huh.
specifically
Yeah.
did not.
Sure. Uh-huh. He's in Dragon Age Absolution. He's in the
Oh my
Dragon Age animated series that came out on Netflix. He's one of the
God. Okay.
main characters. He plays a gay character in that named Lachlan. Spoilers, I guess, for the show. And he also provides a fuckload of voices. He is all over that fucking show. So yes, Bradley didn't deliberately exclude the Dragon Age connection because I'm normal about Dragon
Oh, I
Age.
totally did
Uh,
not see that. I
you,
guess
you
it's
fucking
thank God
saw
you also did research because otherwise this would have been a
fucking saw
travesty.
that. You fucking saw that. Yep. So that's who's playing Marcus Speedstar. Let's talk about some of the background details in the scene because there's a couple of
Okay.
them that have popped up. We are not quite doing our sequel journey in chronological order. Technically, Bloodline is first, but there are some details from Bloodline that make it into this episode.
Okay.
For starters, quoting from Bucket's list here, quote, in the earliest idea for this episode, the plot centered on Han Solo coming to visit the platform. But this was
Oh,
soon changed to having it be someone important to Yeager's past as a spotlight to his character, end quote, which I think is the correct choice for this episode,
agree.
not to have Han Solo in it. He would have vastly overshadowed the episode. Now, why is this connected to Bloodline? Well, the second of the trivia facts on StarWars.com trivia guide. Quote, Captain Doza identifies Marcus Speedstar as a 3-time winner of the Five Sabers. The Five Sabers is a competition first mentioned in the 2016 novel Bloodline by Claudia Gray, end quote. The Five Sabers, the connection is that Han Solo oversees that race.
Ah,
Uh,
okay.
he oversees a version, according to Wikipedia, in 28 ABY, approximately. And by 34 ABY, which is when this takes place, Marcus Speedstar was a 3-time winner of it.
Got it.
The Five Sabers race has also been mentioned in a Star Wars Insider fiction piece, but notably, it was mentioned in Bloodline here, The Last Jedi Cobalt Squadron, and it got a mention in Phasma.
Nice.
So lots of little world building details. There was a
Yeah.
lot the sequel media that was coming out prior really to The Last Jedi was very interconnected.
Yeah, they
It
were trying. You could
connected
see it. Yeah.
it connected a lot to each other. And there were because they had a lot of time to build it up, and they could have things cross over in certain ways. And after The Last Jedi, basically they threw out the script to Duel of the Fates, and
Mm.
Colin Trevorrow left, and
Yeah,
they had to basically rewrite a whole bunch of it, and they didn't know where they were going at that point.
right.
They didn't know where Rise of Skywalker was going when they made the second season of Resistance. So a lot of the tie-in merchandising stuff, the books and comics and stuff, all had to be like very hastily written. A lot of them didn't know because of the production timeline where Rise of Skywalker was actually going to go. It's only been after it came out that we got things that tie it more to the previous sort of era. Resistance Reborn kind of tried to act as like a series finale for all the stuff that had been set up in the supplemental media, like the Battlefront 2 DLC and the novels and all of that. But only recently have we started getting stuff like Shadows of the Sith and the the Greg Pak Vader run tried to tie it in a little bit more. And then an upcoming novel that I'm very excited for about rebuilding the Skywalker saber. It's a Leia and Rey novel. So we're getting that stuff, but we're only getting it now.
Right.
We weren't getting it at the time. But yeah, a lot of this stuff crossed over and referenced each other. At least the Force Awakens tie-in stuff did. And the Last Jedi tie-in stuff did. And then they didn't know what the hell was going to happen with Rise of Skywalker because it was made so fast
Right.
that they didn't have a lot of time. But these things all reference each other. My final note for that is Kaz is an idiot. This is
Per
the
usual.
moment where he's like, I'm still such a huge fan and he's being awkward is the most Kaz moment I think we get in the entire episode.
Section 2. Marcus arrives at the garage with Oplock and R4D12. Yeager coldly refuses to engage and isn't interested in reconnecting. Away from the others, Yeager confronts Marcus about breaking their agreement not to race each other, and Marcus insists he came to reconnect, not compete, saying Yeager is the only family he has left. The brothers argue about the past, with Yeager accusing Marcus of chasing fame at any cost. Their rivalry resurfaces as Marcus hints that he could win now, and Yeager fires back that Marcus can never beat him, making it clear their unresolved competition still defines their relationship. After Marcus leaves, Yeager warns Kaz not to interfere again, while Kaz and Tam question whether Yeager is avoiding the race because Marcus might actually be better. Yeager decides to challenge him, after all, determined to prove he is still the better pilot. At Anzi's tavern, Marcus is treated like a celebrity, but two members of the Guavian death gang confront him over some debt. To guarantee payment, they take Oplock as collateral until Marcus wins the Platform Classic. Yeager arrives and publicly announces he will race him. Marcus reveals he only needs the prize money to settle his debt, and Aunt Z opens betting for the race on the spot, locking Yeager into the competition as the wagers pile up.
Did you recognize the mechanic, Marcus Speedstar's mechanic? I recognize Marcus Speedstar's mechanic. Did you recognize this motherfucker?
As the one trivia question from Dragon Con that you
Yep.
couldn't get right.
Yep. This was all right. So if you didn't listen to our Dragon Con stuff, anything that we did back in 2024, I attended Dragon Con. I placed in the trivia, and we knew they were going to have one resistance question, which everyone assumed I was going to get
hmm
because not a lot of people had seen Resistance. And the question that I got was the race of this species. And I didn't fucking know it because I forgot that some Nikto can like flare out their faces. And I didn't get this one. And Hope and Bradley have never fucking let me live that down. But yes, this is a mountain Nikto, which is why it's different, but it is still a Nikto. So same species as Niku. So fuck this guy.
Gotcha.
I hate him personally. He has done nothing to me, but I do still hate him for being the wrong kind of Nikto and costing me that point at trivia. I did still wind up tying for second.
So
So
now you've just made me think of different questions. So I guess I didn't catch on to that fact. So he's the same species as
he
Niku,
is the same species as
but just
Niku.
different
They are
race.
just different. Yeah, they're regions. They're regional.
Region.
They're
Oh, okay,
regional
okay.
species differences. They're the
Okay,
same
okay.
species,
Same species. Okay.
but there are regional differences between them, which is
Gotcha.
why his face can flare out and Niku's can't.
Got it. And then also, so the language that Oplog is speaking or whatever is just native to whatever planet,
It's
and
native to the
Niku
planet.
just
Yeah, I
knows
looked it
basic.
up. Yeah, I looked it up. A lot of Nikto can speak basic,
Right.
but they do have traditional language.
Okay. Interesting.
Mhm.
Well, that's why they're best friends, I guess.
That they are immediately besties, which is great, which is a great gag. But we need to cut over and have a heart to heart between Yeager and
Yeah,
Marcus.
that was my thing. They were like, "Hey, here's this really funny little moment for a second. Now let's get to a real emotional beat."
Yeah, where they have a really serious emotional conversation where Yeager's basically like, fuck off. I
Hmm.
don't want to talk to you. And we don't find out a whole lot in this scene, but
Right.
it establishes that like
It's
Yeager wants
serious.
nothing to do with
Yeah, it's
Marcus.
serious.
The beef is serious. It's not just in front of other people. In fact, it's even worse when they're in
When private,
private.
yeah. Hmm.
Uh-huh. And we do find out that they've agreed not to race each other.
Right.
That was something that it wasn't a case of like, oh, Yeager's never going to race again. It's deeper than that. Like specifically, they've agreed not to race each other.
Right.
So it's an even bigger deal. But Tam and Kaz are able to pull one of the most classic
Right.
manipulative tactics,
Of course.
which is, man, I mean, I guess you're just scared to race him.
And apparently
And
that
it
was true. Yeah,
works.
it worked.
It works for some reason. Yeager's like, okay, I'll go challenge him. He'll back down.
Yeah, this was probably the weakest part of the episode for me. I mean, I get we have to move the plot forward and we had to have a reason for him to actually go through with the challenge. But I guess, why do I don't know why I just think like once the writing is established early on, I just assume characters will behave a certain way. And so I just naturally think like Yeager would never succumb to this kind of peer pressure or ego. Like, I don't know. I just don't see his character like that. So it's weird to me that he's like, fine, I'll prove it to you guys. Like, he's obviously gonna throw the challenge or he's not gonna accept this or whatever. I don't know if I like that character. Same thing with Doza doing the thing in the last episode. I just don't know if I like the characterization. It was just because of the plot. We had to do it.
We are moving fast. Characters, because the structure of these episodes, a lot of the structure of these mid-season episodes I've noticed is we spend about half the episode doing the setup
Right.
and it's set up for a set piece that's going to form the back half of the episode. And so this one kind of has the same problem as last week, where
Hmm.
we had to cram a lot of the setup and move it very quickly. So, like, I can see how Doza would get to. Like, it's not out of character for him to get to this point. It's out of character slightly for him to get there this quickly.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
And
two
that
thirds of
is
the
something.
episode is that. I mean, it's like,
Yeah, like easily two thirds of the episode is the actual race because that's where the meat is. Like that's what we want to get to. But
right,
because these are
obviously.
22, these were still airing. It's also important to note these were still airing on Disney XD.
Right.
So this was a network TV show. And I know we've all gotten used to in the era of streaming that episodes can be as long or short as they need to be, usually shorter because they don't want to pay the money for it,
Right.
but episodes can be as long or as short as they need to be. And it's easy to forget that, like, with network TV, you had 22 minutes. That was what you had. You had 22 minutes. You had to make it work. And so you had to balance, particularly with Star Wars, you had to balance the character beats and the action beats to make sure you're delivering enough of both. And sometimes the plot just moves fast because, yeah, with an extra minute or two, we could have had Yeager resist for longer, but nope, he's got the plot requires him to agree. He would have gotten there eventually. We'll just do a condensed version and move on. The Guavian Death Gang. These guys. Okay, so the Guavian Death Gang,
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen these before anywhere. So what could this possibly be?
these motherfuckers. So these motherfuckers show up in The Force Awakens.
Hmm.
That's their first appearance. They're one of the gangs that is after Han Solo in The Force
Right.
Awakens. And supplemental material fucking loves these guys.
Well, because they're glupshido as hell. I mean, look
They're
at
glub shadow as
them.
hell. We probably will talk more about them
Yeah,
when we get into The Force
Force
Awakens.
Awakens. Yeah.
But just know that they originated in The Force Awakens and the supplemental material loved these guys. They were in a bunch of novels, they were in a couple of comics. They're all over the place. They're being voiced by sound design guys, Matthew Wood and
Obviously.
David Accord. That's who's voicing these guys.
Naturally. I shouldn't say obviously.
Naturally,
Naturally.
naturally, that's look, that is the Star Wars.
That's the
That is the
Star Wars
Star
way.
Wars way. You got a couple of random guys in the sound booth.
Of course.
Throw them in there. They're going to make weird noises. Boom.
I love
Done.
it.
They mentioned too that this is all based on an incident over Rishi, the planet of Rishi.
Okay.
Rishi is a very old part of Star Wars. It first appears in Dark Force Rising, the second of the Thrawn novels, and appeared in a whole bunch of stuff. I know it primarily from the Shadow of Revan prelude patch to the Star Wars The Old Republic game, but it appeared in a whole bunch of Old Republic stuff. In canon, it was first brought over actually in the Legends days. It's one of the things that occupies both because it first appears, albeit at the form of the Rishi Moon, in a episode of Star Wars The Clone Wars, Rookies, in the first season of The Clone Wars. And since then, it's also been mentioned in Dooku Jedi Lost. It's been mentioned in Heir to the Jedi, a novel that I pretend doesn't exist, even though I grudgingly admit that it does. And if you want to hear us talking about Star Wars Outlaws in our Patreon early access segment and why Bradley won't play Outlaws, you can sign up at patreon.com/Gold Squadron Gaze for $3 a month. But it is also mentioned in Outlaws.
Nice.
So it's been a part of the broader Star Wars universe for a while. And I like that it just gets a name drop here. Hey, speaking of setups and payoffs, nobody was speaking of setups and payoffs, but I'm going to anyway. Kaz is able to very expertly turn the same thing that was told to him in the pilot episode back on Yeager. Because he's like, well, Yeager, once you agree to a race, you can't back out of it.
Right. Of course not.
Ooh.
Well,
So
also
I did.
since people are already putting money down, so it's like, all right.
I,
Well,
I
I've already
like
done it.
that came up again. I
Yeah.
like that they've brought that element of the world building back.
Mm-hmm. I like it. Section 3. After the Cantina confrontation, Marcus reveals the Guavian death gang took Oplok hostage over his debt. Yeager refuses to get involved, but loans Kaz as his mechanic. While working on Marcus's ship, Kaz struggles and admits he is mainly a pilot. Marcus opens up, saying Yeager was always truly the gifted racer, and he explains how after the war, the New Republic's military downsizing caused their brothers to race professionally. Yeager raced to support his family, while Marcus chose fame and recognition. Their rivalry escalated when Marcus boosted his ship with dangerous hyperfuel during a major race, where he clipped Yeager's racer, causing a devastating crash that ruined everything between them. Back at the shop, Yeager, while repairing his old racer, Niku asks why he cut Marcus off. He implies Marcus failed him. Meanwhile, Marcus admits to Kaz that his debt came after losing several races and falling on hard times. Though he needs the prize money, he insists he also came to the Colossus because he genuinely wanted to see Yeager again. Marcus is burdened by guilt and regret over the crash, while Yeager remains hardened and unwilling to forgive, even as both clearly still care about each other.
I don't have a lot of notes for this section because most of it is just this emotional conversations and
Right.
like Niku talking to Yeager and Kaz talking to
The
Yeager.
flip-flopping between the two
The
conversations.
flip-flopping, and we're having sort of a go-between between the two characters. Like, sure, we do find out that Yeager, like, but what was very important for the remainder of the episode is that Yeager specifically was racing for his family, to provide for his family. And Marcus, at least at the time, really, really wanted to be like a famous racer. And that Yeager still thinks Marcus is like that. And we do see the setup for the third act as far as the emotions between the two, where Marcus talks, like he says, I'm racing for Oplok now. You know, I care about my team member. I care about, you know, I'm doing it for him, et cetera, et cetera. And Yeager doesn't buy that. But really, from a technical writing standpoint, what I want to talk about in this little section is how, one, these scenes add context to a previous episode really, really, really well. And also, elements of this were set up back then. Because the Jace episode, Yeager is all in on do not use the hyperfuel. It will get
Right.
people killed.
I wonder where he got that
And
from.
we find out in this episode that the big thing Marcus did to cheat because he wanted to win so badly was use hyperfuel and clipped Yeager and caused a crash. And we also I don't know if you remember this, but there's a moment in the Jace episode where they're in Yeager's office and Jace tries to break into Yeager's private hangar.
Right, and he can't.
He can't,
Right.
but it establishes the private hangar is there.
Oh, I see. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Where the
So
ship is. Yeah.
we
Hmm.
already knew this private hangar doesn't come out of nowhere. We already knew because Jace tried to break into it
Right.
that the private hangar existed. So that's good. That's good writing in terms of how they set up the Colossus. They're not writing this as they go. They did their correct way of doing things, which is they outlined the series before they wrote it, and they clearly wrote a show Bible for this that outlined everything.
Right.
So they already knew going into all the early episodes, here's everything that's going to be important later and set it up. And that you can really tell when a show had a very strong developmental phase and a very strong show Bible that outlined everything out before they even started writing it.
Yeah, like I feel like everything up to this point was very meticulously planned and put in place in a certain way, especially since this does do those reveals. My, I guess maybe we'll find out later on, or you can tell me once we get past our, mid-season finale, but I can't quite figure out if it means anything in the end. I guess is my thing. Like it was really nicely planned up to a certain point, and then it seems that the something happens and then it doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah. So without getting into too many spoilers,
Right.
they spend a lot of the first season understanding and building the setting of the Colossus. And even though the Colossus will change somewhat in the finale, I am not going to spoil how. A lot of the same elements that are being put in place here were clearly intended to continue. It was supposed to be one of those things to where, honestly, the best thing I can liken it to is Star Trek, and particularly the Next
Shocker.
Generation that had a longer. Well, there's a point, and that is the setting of a Star Trek show becomes very important in early Star Trek, particularly in the Rick Berman era and Michael Piller era, with shows like The Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, and Voyager. And because those shows ran for so long, once we got a handle on the setting, we were able to tell really interesting stories because the audience knows the setting and the writers know the setting really, really well. So I bring up, in particular, Bradley won't really, I think, understand this, but Deep Space Nine. Because Deep Space Nine, like Star Wars Resistance, is set on a station. And a lot of the first season of Deep Space Nine is really digging into how is everything set up, getting us introduced to Ops, getting us introduced to the Promenade, Quark's Bar, Garrick's Tailor Shop, the hangars, the airlocks, ore processing, where are the quarters, who's next to each other, what decks are there, what can the holo technology do on the station, all that stuff, restaurants, things like that, so that as the series progresses, we can continue to utilize those locations in interesting ways. Resistance would have done that more had it been able to continue after season two. But unfortunately, it was cut very short, and the last half of season two is really more interested in wrapping up as much of the emotional character beats as it can before it's going to be a casualty of the move to Disney Plus. Also, you should watch Deep Space Nine. It's really fucking good.
Anyway, back to another space show that is annoying.
Uh huh. You're just gonna disrespect the homosexual bond between Dr. Julian Bashir and Elias Garrick, a simple tailor, a thing that is definitely gay, and everyone knows it's gay, and the actor playing Garrick knows that it's gay, but it's the '90s, and the producers are cowards, so we can't do that.
Means nothing to me.
Okay, sure. One day you'll get bored and watch these Star Treks. I will
No, I
bully you into doing it.
I'm like 99% sure that I probably will never do that.
Okay. Sure. Sure, Jen.
Section 4. On race day, Yeager prepares his old racer. Kaz urges him to forgive Marcus, revealing he knows about the debt, but Yeager insists Marcus only ever cared about himself, saying Marcus already cost him everything and that his brother's problems are not his concern. The race begins and escalates into an intense atmospheric climb towards the edge of space. During the climb, Yeager tells Marcus that he can never forgive him for the crash that destroyed his family's life. As the racers descend, a racer attempts to ram Marcus, but he makes it through safely. In the final stretch, Yeager taunts Marcus, insisting he can never beat him and accusing him of still chasing fame, but Marcus admits he cheated in the past and insists he has changed, saying this time he is racing to save people who depend on him. Yeager reveals the full depth of his pain, blaming Marcus for the crash that led to the deaths of his wife and daughter, while Marcus finally confesses his shame, regret, and long search for a chance to apologize. In an act of forgiveness, Yeager veers away from the final hoop and lets Marcus take the win. Marcus uses the credits to pay off the Guavian enforcers and happily reunites with Oplok, thanking Yeager indirectly for helping secure the win. Yeager and Marcus finally reconcile emotionally, shaking hands and embracing. Yeager admits they aren't fully back to being close yet, but acknowledge that they are on the path of rebuilding their relationship. Back at the shop, Kaz praises Yeager's performance and emphasizes the importance of forgiveness, and Yeager reflects that holding grudges benefits no one. Kaz and BB-8 debate whether Yeager and Kaz are friends or just allies.
They're also debating whether or not Kaz and BB-8 are friends. Because BB-8's a little shit in this episode.
BB-8 continues to just randomly appear. Sometimes I kind of get a jump scare like whenever BB-8 appears because I'm always like, oh yeah, that's right, he's here. Like he's
He's here
still a
now.
character.
He's
Yeah.
also in this show.
Yep.
I love that Aunt Z, you can see Aunt Z in the background as the race starts, still taking bets on it. She's
She's gonna do it to the
standing.
last possible second.
Yeah, she's gonna do it to the last possible second, and
Yeah.
I love that. Again, they're doing the thing where they're reusing the models, but you can see a lot of the same people that we know
Hmm.
in the background. I did also find it funny that Yeager's like doing a face to the camera. Like if you look at all of the racers' photos, like Tora has her excitable
Oh,
little
right. Hmm.
hand up, whatever. That is totally in character for her. But not Marcus, Yeager's kind of doing this like downward look to the camera, like he's not looking. He's looking at it, but his face is not looking directly at it.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
like,
like a begrudging photo being taken or
yeah.
something. Yeah.
I was also like, why are you doing like a model face? Like, what is happening here, Yeager? Is there other elements of your career you want to tell us about?
Right.
They basically have their conversation throughout the entire race, which I
Right.
I get thematically makes sense. Themes I know that themes are for eighth grade book reports or whatever, but this is
Yeah, yeah.
effectively an ongoing eighth grade book report, so fuck you, I'm gonna talk about them anyway. I get that the theme is they find their common ground through a shared love of racing, and that shared love of racing is the foundation upon which their relationship can be reestablished. I just don't think now is the best time.
Right. Like we're in the middle of an activity. Like why are we having these like deep emotional pulls like right from nothing? Like it's literally like, "Hey, I bet you can't beat me." Oh yeah, well, I'm really sorry about traumatizing you for your whole entire life. It also traumatized me and also please forgive me. Also, I love you. Also, yeah, also can I win? Because I need the
And they're
money.
doing all this while racing. The only time they're not talking to each other, which I also have to imagine this is a closed channel. I can't imagine they're
I know,
broadcasting
right?
this
No,
to
my brain was thinking
everybody.
like, can everybody hear this? Like that would be so awkward.
Yeah, like is Griff Halloran and his bulging arms that are out of his sleeves because he's wearing a sleeveless shirt? Is he just sitting there like,
Yeah, he's
you guys
awkwardly
really
like.
want to do this now?
Well, also, that guy was confusing me. So is he like some weird like imperial like purist like lover boy or something? Like he's like got the imperial insignia on his like thing, and then he's also got a stormtrooper helmet. Like,
These questions will be answered at a later time.
why do they do this to me? I'm always gonna look at shit like that I don't need to know about now, and I'm gonna be like, why is that guy there, and why does he look like that? Why is that thing there? Why does it do that?
These
Fine.
questions will be answered at a later time.
Fine, teaser.
I get really annoyed like with a lot of modern discussions around particularly books and particularly series. There is like a very annoying thing online. We deal with it in like with regards to Star Wars TV, but I also see it with regards to like book series
Right.
is that people expect that everything is going to be explained immediately. That they see something, and if it's not immediately got an explanation, then people are like, oh, this is bad. And it's like, well, sometimes you got to watch the entire thing and they will explain the thing further down. Like the Acolyte.
Right.
People were throwing all sorts of fits about stuff in the first 3 or 4 episodes of The Acolyte that were like, this doesn't make sense. They didn't explain this. Why is this happening? Yada, yada, yada. I'm like, well, if you watch the fucking show with your eyeballs and you listen with your ears, then most likely they will answer this question for you. It's like people don't understand that sometimes you, as the audience, are meant to ask questions. Like sometimes that's the point. You ask the
Right.
question, and most times they will give you an answer. If they don't give you an answer, there's also times that asking the question is the point, but that's not really relevant here. Anyway, that's a thing that annoys me about how media literacy is dead. Like, no, they're not going to fucking explain everything the minute it happens. It's a world building detail that you have correctly picked up on, and we will give that the time it needs later to breathe. I do like anytime a show does racing, the Bad Batch did it, Resistance is doing it. Anytime there's a racing sequence, it just harkens back to American Graffiti and George Lucas and his love of racing. And I love that.
No, I like it. I could have done without the emotional
Right.
beats in between. Like it is such an odd choice. I mean, I get it for the sake of the plot and what we're doing, and it all makes sense. I just would have been like, can I just watch a race? Like, can I just watch it with the drama of the guy trying to clip him and then he almost crashes and then like all this stuff? Like that is fine. Like I'm fine with all that. But then it's like he does all that stuff and then it's like, by the way, I'm sorry for what I did that killed your family or whatever. I'm like, oh, awkward.
Well, here's the thing. I think
Oh,
that,
I have specifics about this, by the way.
yeah, I do want to say before we get into that, because that was my
Okay.
next note.
Okay.
I do think that some of it has to do with medium, that there are different advantages to telling a story in a different medium. And if you are a multidisciplinary creator, it can be very important to think about the medium in which you're going to tell your story and what pros and cons that is going to create for you.
Hmm.
So, and when you're telling an adaptation too, as a side point, it is important to think about how the medium that the adaptation is going to be, that the language is going to change and the opportunities are going to change. So, like for me, when I made the transition to write the first Beach House Studios as a book and not a TV show, one of the things that I discovered in that writing was that it allowed me to do much more internal character development than I would have been able to do in a TV show, because that's a different medium. You can't hear what the characters are thinking, as opposed to a book where a lot of stuff can be more internal, or a comic where stuff can be more internal because you have the text. And I think that this particular story probably would have been done differently and probably more realistically, to where they have these conversations prior to the race
Right.
and the race happens and Yeager decides to throw it. That could have been done differently if you were able to if you were writing this from Yeager's point of view and you were writing this particular race this way, because then his journey to forgiveness, to starting the process of forgiveness, can be internal rather than external. Because this is a TV show and it's dialogue driven, the conflict resolution needs to be external, so that the audience can participate in it.
Right.
And I think
Well,
that's why this is structured the way that it's structured. Even though it is a little silly as an adult watching this, going
because it's for kids. I mean,
Jeffrey going Captain Barbosa style, I don't think now is the best time.
right. No, that's my favorite part about those movies is that they always have the conversations and full battles and things like that.
Mhm.
Like that's hilarious. It's very, well, I wouldn't say hilarious. It's the Marvel-esque-ness of action now, where it's like they're having these very like jokey, funny conversations or things that are happening while all this very serious killing and things are happening around them, and it's just like. We're in the middle of a war here. It's like, yeah,
Yep.
but I've got 6 points or whatever. Like, you know, they do stupid stuff like that. But like,
The Rey and Kylo Ren duel in Force Awakens, where they stop. They'll do the thing where they duel and they lock blades and they have a conversation. They have a moment and then they break apart and they start dueling again. One of my favorite structural things about Return of the Jedi. You think about the duel between Luke and Vader, right? You picture that duel in your head.
okay,
Okay, most of the fighting happens off screen.
Hmm.
Think about the
It
structure of
cuts.
that duel
Yeah,
for a
yeah.
minute. When they start actually, they don't have a lot of time where they're like actually whacking the lightsabers together on screen.
Hmm.
It literally, they lock the blades together in front of Palpatine. He laughs and it cuts away while they're fighting, and then it cuts back and they whack him a few times, and then Luke knocks Vader down the stairs, and then they talk,
We love that.
and they literally cut away during the fighting and they cut back to it during the talking. It's hilarious. We're gonna cover those movies someday,
That's something.
and that's one of my favorite parts of those movies is that they cut away. So much of that duel is just them talking or Vader monologuing at Luke. Yeah, we do find out that Marcus cheats with the hyperfuel, causes a crash. Racer crashes into the stands. We don't know which racer it was. We don't know if it was Yeager's. We don't know if it was a different racer that was knocked in there as a result of him clipping Yeager. But that crash did kill Yeager's wife and kid.
Okay. So that's where I was getting, I guess it was getting a little confusing because the exposition was like
I had to
vague
look
enough.
it up.
Yeah, it was a little vague.
It was a little because they don't want to say on screen
Right. I
Marcus
murdered your family.
killed. I indirectly murdered. It would be manslaughter. It would be involuntary manslaughter.
Right.
If
But like
not a lawyer, this is not legal advice. I am just going based on my research writing crime novels that involve people getting killed. To me, this would be involuntary manslaughter.
I'm not trying to make it even more of a trauma dump, but like, okay, so he clips Yeager's wing, causing Yeager to crash into the
They
stands,
don't
murdering his
say.
family.
They don't say. They
Okay.
do not
I
say
just assumed
who
that's what it
actually
was.
crashed into the stands. It's kind of implied that,
Right, because then that's why he would feel so guilty and so like,
but it's also possible that another racer crashed into the stands because that racer could have been killed.
okay.
They don't get into a lot of the details. We just know it caused a crash. The crash killed Yeager's family, and they don't even really come out and directly say, like, you killed my family or you got my family killed. I had to go
Right.
check it because it's not abundantly it's
No.
clear, but it's not explicitly stated. So I had to check and make sure, like,
It's
this is
all
the point in which
implied.
we find
Yeah.
out they're dead.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, it was Marcus's fault that it
Okay.
happened.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, I guess unless something else comes out to contradict that, like I'm my personal headcanon is that it was Yeager's ship that crashed into the stands, thus
there's
indirectly
nothing to
killing his family.
yeah, there's nothing to contradict that.
Yeah,
So
I think that's just more emotionally charged, so that's why I'm going with that because
yes.
you wouldn't necessarily, I mean, I think he would still cut off his brother if he knew his brother was the cause of a crash. However, I think the more emotionally like heightened version of that is that you caused me to indirectly kill my own family. Therefore,
Yeah.
that's even worse. You know what I
And
mean?
it's very clear that Marcus like reacted badly in the aftermath of this
Right.
because the big issue is that Yeager can't let go of this whole Marcus is just out for fame and glory,
Right.
even though there's
Right.
all this evidence to the contrary. And Marcus has to make him understand, like, no, like I understand now, like what racing's about. I understand that like racing for someone else, racing on behalf of someone else, and that someone else's life is in jeopardy now because of my racing. Like I get that. I wish he had come back. I wish we had gotten more with this character because
God.
I feel like there's more we can do to add more context to this that we just don't get.
Yeah.
But that's sort of the baseline 22-minute emotional arc
I
that we
know.
get with the character.
I feel like it's good, but it's like it could be so much better by having more. Like it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, they did a good job, but like you're scratching the surface on character development here. Like they
It's
truncated this whole entire arc into like what could have been probably in traditional TV, multiple episodes. But this is very much like, okay, we have to kind of condense this down
well,
real
because
fast.
it's the setup to an arc that never pays off.
Right.
It's a casualty of the show being canceled. That this was clearly meant to set up an arc
Right.
that didn't wind up happening. And then
Well,
Yeager throws the race.
right.
He proves that he could have won it. Marcus does win it. Everybody gets what they wanted. The Guavian Death Gang gets all their money, which means they go away. I do like the note at the end that it would have been a little ridiculous if Yeager just forgave him. So I like that when he asked, like, do you forgive me, or are we good? Yeager's like, no, we're not.
Right.
Because this is something that this is too deep of a wound. But we're better than we were. I do like that writing choice. That was a very
Hmm.
excellent writing choice. I also think it's funny that the show kind of turns to the camera to be after school, especially with Kaz.
Yeah.
That's just hilarious. Where he's like, man, I guess we all learned a valuable lesson about forgiveness today.
It
Okay,
was
Kaz.
it was giving Veggie Tales. It was very much like, here's the
God.
Bible verse at the end of the episode. Like, what did you learn this week, kids? Like,
So now we're going to go over the computer, and the computer's going to sing a song, and then we're
Yep.
going to show the Bible verse.
Yep.
My final note for the whole thing, I didn't have a good place to put it, but I ran across it when I was looking at the trivia guide. Quote, it was intentional to have a visual contrast between Marcus and Yeager, including their ships to emphasize the rift between the two. While Marcus has a flashy racing ship, Yeager's ship was designed to feel like a fighter that hailed from the original trilogy era. The design evolved from a combination of the original trilogy Star Wars ships and the Bell X-1, the ship in which Chuck Yeager broke the speed barrier. The striping and colors for Yeager's ship were based off of Bill George's paint scheme for his original model of the Fireball. End quote. And what stuck out to me about that, other than being really interesting, is I didn't catch this. It's not listed in a trivia guide like that's written out, and it's not listed on the Wikipedia page that I could find. I did, because I don't think they've ever confirmed it, but I'm 99.9 repeating percent sure that Jarek Yeager is named after Chuck Yeager, the
Who
pilot who broke the
is?
sound barrier.
Oh, okay. That would make sense.
Yes, I didn't know that, but I stumbled across it in this behind the scenes thing, and I thought it was really interesting that he was named after, because I forgot Chuck Yeager exists, and then they said his name, and I was like, oh yeah, that makes
Clever.
sense. That makes sense. This episode is directed by Stuart Lee. We've talked about him before. Supervising director Justin Ridge. We've talked about him before. It was co-written by Kevin Burke and Chris Wyatt. We've talked about them before. They wrote the Triple Dark.
Amazing. Well, it makes our job easier.
Yep. Makes our job so much easier. Bradley, do you have any final thoughts on this episode?
No, final thoughts are just like, I think it's a solid episode. I'm really sad that this is the only time we're ever gonna see Marcus Speedstar, and that's it. Ever again. Like, and I mean, I don't know if it's spoilery, but like, do they ever mention him ever again?
I think they mention him again
Okay.
once, according to his Wikipedia page.
Okay. Well, if as long as he's at least mentioned again. But like, it would be really unfortunate for them to have done this whole episode, make these emotional beats, have him be like,
Yeah,
"I finally forgive my brother for murdering my family," and then it's like, "Yeah, we're never gonna talk about your brother ever again, and you're never gonna see him ever again."
it's a good. My final thought is it's a good episode, but yeah, I agree. It's one of those vestigial things where like it was clearly meant to set up potential future character development for Yeager. They didn't know how many seasons of this show they
Of
were going to
course not.
get, so they were setting up like. But they assumed, I think, at least that they were going to get 3 seasons of it,
Hmm.
because that's the standard.
Right.
Even the Bad Batch got a final season, even if it seems a little bit truncated from what the original plan was. But you'll tell, and we'll be able to get there. You'll kind of be able to tell when season 2 realizes it's going to get canceled,
Mhm.
and there's a lot of very very minor character development potential beats that are never followed up on. This is regrettably one of them. It's a good episode.
Yeah.
It's a little contrived. I'm okay with it because of the medium, but yeah, I agree with you. It's really a shame that this element of Yeager's character is never really followed up on. What are we talking about next week?
Next week we're talking about episode 10, Secrets and Holograms.
Yep, it's a Toradoza episode. We're
We're
gonna do
just
some more
going
stuff with her.
character to character, aren't we?
That's what we're doing in this first season. We're going character to character to character to give them all a moment to shine.
Of course.
And I don't remember a whole lot about this episode, so we're going to see where it's going. And then just to remind listeners, after the mid-season finale of Resistance Season 1, which is Station Theta Black, I think is the name of the episode. That is the point in which we will stop, and we will switch to do Maul Shadow Lord as it is airing. So the week after that, our Maul Episode 0 will come out. I have not read the comic. I will read the comic by the time we get to that episode. Pluggables! Bradley does a whole bunch of reality TV, and we encourage people to watch them so that he can remain employed. Such shows as Married to Medicine, The Circle, Queen's Court, King's Court. I mean, you could watch Temptation Island if you want. I'm very excited for the new season to come out. You can also find me on the Star Wars TTRPG podcast for Light and Dice. That has just started its third season, and we've recorded our first session. It's shaping up to be a really fun one. So definitely catch up on that and give that a listen. I also write queer books. I'm currently writing a crime serial called Beach House Studios. You can find that on Amazon, Kobo, Barnes & Noble, and you can request it through the website. All right, Bradley, I need to get out of here. Run our socials. Thank you for listening to Gold Squadron Gaze. Did Charles fuck something up? Email us at goldsquadrongaze@gmail.com and let us know. You can follow us on BlueSky, Instagram, Threads, and TikTok at Gold Squadron Gaze. Subscribe to us on YouTube at Gold Squadron Gaze, where we post full episodes of this podcast. If you like the podcast, you can also rate us and review us on your favorite podcast app of choice. Please join us next week and every week for another episode of Gold Squadron Gaze. I was like, this is dumb and bad, but at least there's some interesting ideas here, like Krypton being destroyed by Kryptonian governmental mismanagement. I thought was a great idea. It's handled badly, but it's an interesting idea. And then we got to the last third of the movie, and I was like, this is the dumbest shit I've ever seen in my entire life.